The film begins with a teenage girl named Ashley on a video call, talking with her closest friend about a certain house. Suddenly, she hears someone knocking at the door. She quickly shoves her books and a map under the bed and calls out for whoever is there to come in, but no one responds. Her body goes stiff with fear when her friend reminds her that she's alone because her family isn't home. A few moments later, another knock echoes through the house. Feeling uneasy, Ashley opens the door, only to find the hallway completely empty. Her friend becomes anxious, but Ashley shrugs it off, saying it's likely her sibling playing a trick on her. She walks into the living room and finds no one there, not realizing that a shadowy presence is close by. Ashley goes back to her bedroom and assures her friend that there was nobody at the door. Then, just as she closes it, the scene suddenly shifts to a married couple, Chuck and Maria, who are being shown a house by their real estate agent, Bonnie. Bonnie explains that the price matches the last property they saw, yet this one is double the size, which instantly makes Chuck suspicious. Bonnie reassures him, explaining that the house has remained unsold for 3 years, so the owner is eager to close a deal. The couple seems impressed at that moment, just as Chuck's younger sister, Isabelle, shows up. Chuck happily tells Isabelle that the new place will give her plenty of room to focus on her artwork, but she doesn't look very excited. The story then moves into the first chapter, told from Chuck's perspective, a few days after they move in. When he discovers water leaking inside the house, he quickly contacts Bonnie to complain and snaps a picture as proof to send her. Afterward, Chuck goes into Maria's workspace, where she designs dresses and hosts live streams. His attention settles on a strange mannequin named Martha, which makes him uncomfortable, though Maria says it's the only thing she has left from her original studio. For a brief moment, we see Martha again, and her head has shifted position. Chuck later steps outside to inspect the roof and is greeted by a neighbor named Larry. As they talk, Larry casually mentions that the former homeowner ended his own life there, leaving Chuck stunned. Later that evening, Chuck looks through the photos he took for Bonnie. A chill runs through him when he spots a gun in one of the pictures, an object that definitely wasn't there when he took it. The following morning, Chuck wakes up and notices something alarming outside the house, quickly calling Maria to see it. He goes downstairs, and we see Martha standing in a disturbing way beneath a tree. Larry comes over to check what's going on, but Chuck dismisses it, suggesting that Isabelle must have placed the mannequin outside as a joke. Larry then mentions that Maria had told him Isabelle has been having a hard time recovering from their mother's car accident. He also adds that the town has a dark past filled with suicides, and people battling depression are especially at risk from someone referred to as her. Confused, Chuck asks what her means, but Larry simply advises him to look into the town's records at the local library before walking away. Later that day, Chuck goes to the library, curious to learn more about the town's history. Inside, he's startled when a pile of books suddenly crashes to the floor, even though they hadn't been there just seconds earlier. He soon notices a girl named Ashley sitting alone and crying. She urgently begs him to put the book back and leave town immediately, though Chuck can't make sense of her warning. He asks whether she needs help, but she insists she's fine. As he exits the library, his eyes land on a flyer advertising a group called Friends of Gardening, and it catches his attention. The following night, Chuck attends the Friends of Gardening gathering, where he is greeted by Larry and several other locals. It doesn't take long for him to realize the meeting has nothing to do with plants at all, but something far darker. They soon reveal that Ashley ended her life the previous evening, and the members fear that even worse events are on the way. The group talks about how nearly everyone in town has lost someone because of a figure they call her, and they warn that escaping the town won't free them, because she follows wherever they go. Hearing this, Chuck, completely puzzled, asks who exactly they mean and why they keep repeating the word her. One man explains they are referring to Helen Foster, a woman who has terrorized the town for many decades. That is why the meetings are kept secret, and why people avoid speaking her name, afraid that doing so will bring harm. They explain that the only way to end her curse is to locate 825 Forest Road, the house where Helen lived in the 1940s and where she ended her own life. However, the address can no longer be found, as it has been removed from every official map. While they are talking, Larry senses someone standing on the staircase. When he moves closer, he catches sight of Helen's spirit gliding unsettlingly down the hallway. Fear overwhelms him, and he alerts the others, prompting everyone to abruptly stop the meeting and hurry out of the building. As they exit, Chuck spots a disturbing figure sitting alone inside the church. The story then transitions to Chapter 2, now centered on Isabelle and her inner battles. We discover that ever since her mother passed away, Isabelle has been suffering from deep emotional pain. Since moving into the new house, she has also been tormented by vivid nightmares about her mother, waking up shaken each time. One evening, Chuck asks how her therapy sessions have been going. He then notices a drawing she made that looks almost exactly like their current house, but is startled when Isabelle says she created it 2 or 3 years earlier. Another sketch grabs his attention, showing a girl in a hallway while shadowy hands stretch toward her from the darkness. The brother and sister begin reminiscing about their mother, remembering how she used to stack plates into a pyramid and leave behind a note that read, "They won't put themselves away." A few days later, Isabelle's new classmate Luke comes over to visit, and she brings him into her room. Curious, she asks him what he knows about the town, and he tells her that people have long believed it is haunted. He explains that years ago, a man hanged himself in the library beside a pile of books, and that same pile still mysteriously appears on its own, something many residents claim to have witnessed. Luke says it all connects back to Helen Foster, who lived there about 50 years ago. Her daughter was cruelly bullied at school, so Helen desperately sent letters to the school, the bully's family, and even the town council, begging for help, but no one paid attention. Eventually, her daughter took her own life, and after that tragedy, Helen lost control. Overcome with grief and rage, she killed the bully and the bully's parents before turning a shotgun on herself. People say she once lived at 825 Forest Road, yet that address no longer exists on modern maps, and the town's older maps were sealed by court order in the 1950s. Hearing all of this, Isabelle is stunned as she realizes the town is far more dangerous than she ever imagined. In the next scene, Maria takes Isabelle to an art gallery, where the two begin forming a connection. Maria confides that she has bipolar disorder and relies on medication, which usually keeps her balanced. She tells Isabelle that even though Chuck doesn't fully understand these struggles, she does, and she knows what Isabelle is facing. Isabelle feels comforted by her words, but suddenly they hear a girl screaming somewhere nearby. An announcement quickly follows, ordering the gallery to shut down immediately. Isabelle looks at one of the drawings and is horrified to see a woman's figure appearing in it, even though it wasn't there before. That night, while Isabelle sleeps calmly, the light inside her closet suddenly switches on by itself, startling her awake. She gets up and turns it off. But then, frustrated, she removes the light bulb entirely and sets it on her bedside table. Her fear returns when the closet light begins flickering again despite the bulb being gone. To make things even worse, ghostly hands stretch out from inside the closet, making her scream in absolute terror. Thankfully, it turns out to be only a dream, yet Isabelle feels a chill when she spots the light bulb resting on her bedside table. Later on, she meets up with Luke and admits that her nightmares are becoming more intense. She tells him she wants to search for Forest Road, but Luke firmly tells her that's a bad idea. He explains that rumors say Ashley and her friends were hunting for that same house, and she might have actually discovered it, after which strange and frightening things started happening to her. Right then, Isabelle receives a call from Chuck telling her to come back home because he needs someone to stay with Maria. Anxious, she hurries home and finds Maria upset and in tears. When Isabelle asks what's going on, Chuck simply tells her to pack her things and says he'll return shortly. As Isabelle gathers her belongings, Luke shows up to see if everything is alright. He spots a photo of her with her mother and casually mentions that he met her mom, saying she seemed kind. Isabelle is terrified by this, and when she asks what he's talking about, Luke says her mother was the one who let him into the house. Shocked, Isabelle tells him her mother has passed away, but Luke insists it was the same woman from the picture and that she introduced herself as Isabelle's mom. Both of them grow uneasy, and suddenly they hear something smash downstairs. Carefully, they move down the hallway to investigate, but they don't find anyone there. Panicked, Luke says he must have made a mistake and quickly leaves for home. Out of nowhere, Isabelle hears a woman's voice from the kitchen softly calling her name and claiming to be her mother. Overwhelmed with emotion, Isabelle starts walking toward the sound, even as Maria appears and begs her not to. The voice repeats, "These dishes won't put themselves away," and Isabelle sees shattered plates spread across the kitchen floor. Moments later, she and Maria come face to face with a ghostly presence, and they run in fear, only to discover the front door won't open. Isabelle dashes into her bedroom and locks the door, while Maria's screams echo through the house. The story then moves into Chapter 3, centered on Maria, beginning from the day the family first came to see the property. A few days afterward, Maria and Chuck are shown sitting in their car, discussing Isabelle, who is clearly struggling. Chuck brushes off therapy as pointless, but Maria reminds him that Isabelle was behind the wheel during the accident that killed their mother, something that must have deeply affected her. She insists they need to allow Isabelle time to process everything. Later at home, Maria sees Chuck reading about the town's past, and he tells her that in 1953 every street name was changed and the town's boundaries were altered. Their home, he says, used to be called 15 Rose Lane. When Maria walks into the kitchen, she notices dishes stacked strangely with a note on top that says, "They won't put themselves away." Assuming Isabelle did it, she asks Chuck to tell her to clean them up. Days later, Maria is live streaming from her studio when we notice Martha's hands shifting behind her. She receives a call from her sister, who likely wants to warn her about something odd, but Maria chooses not to answer. When her sister calls again, Maria assumes it's about the bridesmaid gowns and starts showing them on camera, just as Martha's head slowly turns. Soon after, Maria gets a text from a friend telling her to leave the house right away. She doesn't take it too seriously at first, but then she realizes the mannequin has disappeared, and a loud noise echoes from somewhere nearby, prompting her to step outside cautiously. To her shock, she sees Martha standing inside another room. And then, without warning, in the following scene, Chuck and Maria are outside burning the mannequin. Later, Chuck asks if Maria has been taking her medication properly, suggesting that might explain what happened, but an upset Maria responds that thousands of viewers witnessed Martha moving. Chuck says he's sorry and promises they can relocate somewhere else, but asks for a bit more time. At that moment, Isabelle comes in, and Chuck tells her to start packing, assuring her he'll return soon. After Isabelle goes upstairs, Maria walks into the kitchen and notices the dishes piled up again, this time with a note that reads, "Hello Maria." She looks puzzled but decides to ignore it and turns away, just as the sound of plates smashing echoes through the room. Not long after, a ghostly whisper calls out to Isabelle, urging her to come to her mother. The scene shifts to Isabelle and Maria hurrying upstairs and locking themselves inside their separate bedrooms. Suddenly, Maria's door slowly swings open on its own. Moments later, the spirit appears in front of her, making her scream in pure terror. Isabelle hears the scream, and just then Maria rushes into her room, and they hold each other tightly, shaking with fear. But Isabelle suddenly asks what happened to Maria's face, and we see blood running from Maria's nose. The story then moves to Chapter 4, titled Forest Road, where Maria is shown lying weak in bed while Chuck sits beside her. Soon, the doorbell rings, and Chuck goes to answer it. Downstairs, Luke is standing there with something important to share. He explains to Chuck and Isabelle how Ashley managed to locate the mysterious house. Although the old town maps had been removed, the council forgot to update one crucial detail: the city's electrical grid map. By tracing the outdated power lines, they can now identify exactly where 825 Forest Road is located. Chuck and Isabelle decide to go there right away, but just then, the doorbell rings once more. This time it's Bonnie, accompanied by a cameraman, hoping to film a testimonial for her promotion. Chuck tells her it's not a good moment since Maria isn't feeling well. Unexpectedly, Maria walks downstairs appearing perfectly fine and says she's ready to do it. Still, Isabelle feels uneasy and asks Luke to stay with Maria until they return, and he agrees. After Chuck and Isabelle leave for Forest Road, Maria prepares to be filmed, though she keeps shooting Luke angry looks. Bonnie asks her to introduce herself, but Maria only gives her first name, even when Bonnie encourages her to say her full name. Confused, Bonnie asks how they discovered her real estate business, but Maria suddenly begins talking about her daughter, saying she used to come home from school crying. Bonnie attempts to redirect the conversation, yet Maria continues, explaining that after the tears, she once found blood in her daughter's bathroom sink. Meanwhile, Chuck and Isabelle arrive at a house hidden deep in the woods. They force their way inside and begin searching for proof that it once belonged to Helen, since Chuck plans to burn it down afterward. Back at the interview, Maria, now clearly taken over by Helen Foster, describes how she sent numerous letters to the Clark family, the parents of the bully, detailing the cruelty her daughter endured. But instead of stopping, the torment only intensified, and even though the school promised action, nothing changed. At that moment, blood begins to drip from Maria's nose again. In the forest house, Chuck discovers a box concealed beneath the floorboards and finds a letter Helen wrote to the Clarks about their child bullying her daughter Mary. To his horror, he realizes that this woodland house belongs to the Clarks, while Helen actually lived at 15 Rose Lane, which is now Chuck's home. Terrified, he rushes to grab Isabelle so they can leave, but finds her standing still in front of a door, unmoving. Back to Maria, still possessed and bleeding, she once again speaks about her daughter returning home in tears. A frightened Luke asks her daughter's name, and she answers, Mary. When he asks where Mary is now, Maria screams that she is dead, and at that instant Helen reveals herself in her true ghostly form, sending everyone running in fear. Luke runs toward the kitchen and hears Helen attacking Bonnie and the cameraman, seemingly killing them. Panicked, he hides behind the dining table. And then, without warning, inside the forest house, Isabelle apologizes, saying she had seen this moment before. Suddenly, the ghost places a hand on Isabelle's shoulder, just like in the drawing she created years ago. Chuck tries desperately to pull his sister away, but despite his efforts, the spirit drags both of them into the room. In the final scene, we see the house at 15 Rose Lane standing in complete, unsettling silence, while the ultimate fate of the family remains a mystery. Some stories fade away, but if this one still lingers in your mind, maybe it was meant for you to find us.